So depending on who you listen to, some people are optimistic about the real estate market, some are pessimistic about the real estate market. So in my monthly update today, I'm going to be talking through what changes are happening in the market itself, but also with interest rates, inflation, all of that stuff. So that way you can stay in the know and know what's actually going on. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Mark Cannon, local realtor here in the Phoenix area with my home group real estate and owner of the Benchmark Real Estate team. So as always, guys, this is a podcast format. I'm here to be real with you. That's why it's called Real Talk Real Estate, because I'm not here trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to give you accurate information so that way you can make the best decision possible. That's the whole point, to be a resource for you, not gimmicks and all this other stuff. So we're talking about our monthly update for today, and we're here in September. So today is September 2nd. This is being released September 3rd, and I'm going to talk through all the different things, whether it be interest rates, whether it be inventory, whether it be the trends in the actual market from the Cromford report. I'm going to talk through all that stuff. I know people are talking about the Fed rate cut stuff. I'm going to talk about all that, so just stay tuned. But let's start where we always start, inventory. So last month, we had come down like 2,000 homes. And as far as how many homes were on the market. Now, we haven't come down that far this month, so in the past month or so. So we've come down about 500 homes. We were at 23,800. Now we're sitting about 23,300. So we've come down a little bit. What does that tell us? Again, listings are staying about the same, but we're seeing maybe a little small uptick in buyers. And we'll see that when we go through the Cromford report here in a second. But it's one of those that we're seeing inventory start to drop. Now remember, real estate's all about supply and demand. I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. Supply and demand. As supply drops and demand rises, that's going to start affecting prices, where right now they're slowly coming down in certain areas, and that might change. Not drastically. Like, it's not like, next week it's going to happen. Not saying that. But over time, that's going to start changing the market. So something to be paying attention to for sure. So when we talk about interest rates, obviously everyone wants to talk about the Fed cut and all this stuff. Remember, the Fed doesn't directly control mortgage interest rates. That is usually following the 10-year treasury. That's what mortgage interest rates follow, is the 10-year treasury. And when that goes up and down, that affects the mortgage interest rates. Now, what I typically tell people is mortgage interest rates, because it follows the 10-year treasury, is kind of ahead of the Fed cut. So like people have been saying for over a month now, the Fed's going to cut it in September. And they probably are. We're going to find that out, I think, on the 11th or 12th is when the Fed announces. So I'll be talking about that next month. But more than likely, they're going to be cutting interest rates. Well, they've already pre-baked that in. And so I'll put it up on the screen here so you can see the interest rate. So last month, we were at about 6.57. We're right now at about 6.53. We were at 6.5 as of, I believe it was last week, and now we're at 6.53. Okay, so we've come up a little bit. So we're still in about the same range. FHA is just above, just below 6.1%. So that's where interest rates are, and that's not a bad thing. They've slowly come down. And what we're going to see is, over time, we're going to see that this is going to keep coming down. I'm going to be doing something next week. You can check out my video I'm going to be doing next week, which is going to talk about projections of what they think is going to happen with some of these interest rates and different things like that. So check that out next week. But I think we're going to probably get down near 6.2% by the end of the year, hover around that number. It might be 6.3, it might be 6.1. I think we're going to hover. I think they're estimating there's going to be a couple different rate cuts this year. So that's going to start getting pre-baked in. You're going to see the markets respond to it. But interest rates are slowly coming down, which that will affect the market. One of the things I'm going to talk about next week is there's data that they're coming out with now of, okay, if we get down to, let's say, 6% interest rates, what does that do for affordability? How many people does that bring back in the market? So I'm going to talk about that next week, so check that out. But interest rates are coming down. Now, okay, so that's happening. What about inflation? So inflation, if you actually look at these numbers, the inflation numbers have stayed about the same. So when we see that number, I'm trying to pull it up. Here it is. So it's at 2.7 still. So we're hovering there. That number will be updated in the middle of the month. So I'll have an update on that next month to see what's happening, but it's still hovering around there. Now, remember, the goal is 2%. That's usually always been the goal. We're still a little higher than that. I would like to see that come down still, obviously. But it's one of those that's something to pay attention to, because that's the fear of, like, okay, if you cut interest rates too much, does inflation start rising again? That's what we don't want. We don't want to get back to where we were with all the crazy inflation that we had. So definitely something to be paying attention to. Now let's talk about the Cromford report real quick. So the Cromford report, remember, this is something here in the Phoenix area that I pay for, that I use. Their scale in between 90 to 110 is a balanced market. Anything below 90 is buyer's market. Anything above 110 is a seller's market. Now, when they say seller's market, like, you're going to see there's a lot of green arrows on here. That's a good thing. That means the market's responding a little bit. We're seeing more action in the market. Now, do I truly believe that all of those above 110 are truly seller's markets? No, I don't. Like, this is where, like, data's good. Information like this is really helpful, but it doesn't always paint a perfect picture of everything, right? So it's one of those that, to me, most of the market here is either balanced or buyer's markets. You do have some areas that it's still pretty hot: Paradise Valley, Fountain Hills, Chandler, places like that, Scottsdale. Pretty, active market still. Higher price points typically in a lot of those places. So it's one of those that all the other markets tend to be either balanced or in buyers. Like you're seeing, like, Peoria's come up. You're seeing Surprises come up. You're seeing Goodyear's come up. And what's that showing is we're actually seeing activity in the market. And that's a good thing. We haven't seen this many green arrows in a long time. And that's a good thing to have, where the market is starting to rebound a little bit. Now, does that mean panic, go buy right now? I'm not saying that, okay? The market's not going to respond that fast. But we are starting to see a trend of, okay, activity is picking up. Interest rates are slowly coming down. That's going to start changing things for people. Again, I'm going to talk about that next week a lot more. But it is showing the trends of positive movement in the market. So if you're thinking about buying, if you're thinking about selling, and you're just not sure what to do, again, you can't time the market. It's going to tell you that you can't time the market. There's no perfect time to buy or sell. It's about what's right for you. It's about figuring out what is the goals for you. I would love to sit down with you. I'd love to take you to coffee. If you want my information, it's right here. Again, I'd love to just sit down and talk about your goals. I work real estate through relationships. It's about doing what's best for you. So if you're really thinking about this and you're just not sure what to do, let's sit down. Let's talk. Let's talk through what your goals are and see what's best for you in that way. Guys, you've been listening to Real Talk Real Estate. I'll catch you next time.